Sylvia, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brad. Great to be here.
So why don't we just take a minute? We have many more listeners and you have many more funds now since the last time we talked. So can you give everybody a quick refresher, maybe on your background and the journey that led you to become, the CEO of Defiance?
Yeah, sure. So Defiance was launched in 2018, and the original founder of the company was Matt Bielski. A little bit of history. We worked together at Direction ETFs before that. So my career has been, very much in ETFs. I spent some time on an equity derivatives Delta One desk. And then from there, I joined Direction in 2009 and Defiance in 2020. So I've very much grown up in ETFs, levered and inverse ETFs, thematic ETFs, and all of these things. And we were talking a little bit off camera, but the last time we spoke, I think we had a handful of products. So where we sit now is we have 80 plus funds. We're 13 billion in AUM, and the funds range from thematic ETFs, single name leveraged ETFs, and income generating ETF products. And so, yeah, super happy to be here, and thanks for having us.
Sure. So why don't we just talk a little bit more about Defiance? As you mentioned, the firm launched in 2018. You've crossed 13 billion in assets. So for listeners who know some of your individual tickers, but might not know like the full story, what is the kind of philosophy at Defiance, and what does the product mix look like today? And as you've mentioned, it's changed so much.
Yeah, so I would say that we've been pretty consistent with our theme, right? We try to be first to market with disruptive, new, innovative, disruptive technologies, or just really new ideas and things that don't exist in the market that investors are very much talking about and looking for access to. So, a great example is the quantum ETF that came to the market in 2018. It was the first of its kind, and kind of lo and behold, it takes some time for disruptive technologies to become commercial opportunities, right? And so we like to be ahead of the curve with some of the themes and some of the products that we come to market with. And on the single name leverage stocks, there's just been this massive amount of growth in single name levered ETFs. You see billions of dollars pouring into some of these names. And great example of that is like we just had a launch a couple of weeks ago on a 2X Poet, and the ticker's POEL. That's a name that was not really well known a year ago. And this year investors were buzzing about it, and we noticed it. So we put it into the market, and that gathered, $100 million of assets like rather quickly and kept going up from there. So we just try to be, again, ahead of the curve, bringing to the market the products that retail investors, hedge funds, institutional investors are really looking to trade, and trying to innovate and keep the product lineup relevant.
I'm kind of curious what that process looks like, inside the walls of Defiance. You've been right on a lot of themes, and what is the process like, behind closed doors when the team's deciding, what themes or single stock names are worth building around, what's not? And you guys have to move fast. So I'm sure, there's not a lot of, the Western Pennsylvania is going to come out of me, the him hauling around,
right.
deciding what to do. You got to move fast. So what's that process look like?
I think you've answered the question actually really well with it, like just with your intro there. There is no hem hawing at all, right? And I think that this year we see the the speed, the veracity, the volume of ETF filings and launches from all issuers. So it's very much a competitive world amongst us issuers out there in the market. When we have a good idea, we obviously think things through, and we do all of the due diligence and the research and the, correct type of R&D prior to building an ETF. We're working with an index provider to build an ETF in some cases, but it's very much doing that quickly and efficiently and trying to gain some first mover advantage in some cases. Obviously with the thematic funds, it takes a little bit more time to actually craft an idea. But, we just try to think about the different innovations and trends out there. For example, AI was a big thing, right? AI is a huge thing. It's the biggest topic in the market, and the ChatGPT moment really opened that up. And so, when that happened, there was a lot of money that just poured into the semiconductor ETFs or just NVIDIA stock. And then companies like ours start looking at it and saying like, okay, so the AI trade is pretty well covered, right? So, but like, what's next? What do we need? What has to happen for AI to actually work and come to fruition and mature? And, which sectors will it affect? And which subsectors could this potentially bring up? And then, we bring to the market like an AIPO, which is an AI infrastructure power and infrastructure ETF, right? So it's just kind of like finding that little niche within the bigger pie to see if there's interest. And, that gathered a lot of interest. But yeah, it's just like really dissecting every single market theme and, news, what the retail investors are talking about, what institutions are talking about, and, our own ideas and just trying to craft good products.
Well, let's get into one of the more recent launches, which is an impactful fund. And I think for you guys, kudos to you. And we want to talk through this, but let's get into ASD, which is the Defiance Autism Impact ETF. It's just been launched on June 2nd, and this is the first ETF of its kind. At a very high level, what is this fund and what is the mission behind it?
Yeah, so the birth of this ETF actually comes from something that's very much close to all of our hearts here at Defiance. So Matt Bielski and Gabriella Bielski have a son who is, on the autism spectrum. And they've really spent his childhood supporting him and finding the right services to help him grow, develop, and thrive. And through that, they've, kind of met other people and seen how autism affects different families and what the financial constraints are, what the educational requirements are, the behavioral challenges are, the pharmaceutical challenges are, and things like this. And it's really been something where, they've thought that through and wanted to create a fund that invest in the companies that just are on the forefront of research and development in this space, in hopes that, it helps the ecosystem grow, right? And that it has a good cause behind it. So the fund actually donates 100% of the profits for a couple years to autism causes, and then at least 50% after that. But the broader picture here is 1 in 31 children are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. There are, specialized services, increased costs for behavioral therapies, and each of those children has a lifetime cost that's projected to be about $3 million per child. And so, it's a very challenging type of mission to work with this. And so when we think about the companies in the ETF itself and like how this kind of ties together, we look at companies that are working on this, right? So whether it's drug development, genetic testing, whether it's diagnostic technologies, whether it's behavioral therapies, educational tools, digital health solutions, there are a lot of companies out there that do these things. And the index essentially researches this and looks at the entire value chain and creates this ASD index based on those companies that are involved with these things.
Yeah. So you mentioned just, this is kind of touched Matt personally, and he's not on the show today. So I don't know how much we want to get into this, but how much do you think, Matt's lived experience like shapes this fund? Or, it seems like it's purely index driven, but the philanthropic piece has a lot to do with Matt's personal experience.
The philanthropic piece is 100% based on Matt's personal experience and the experiences that, we've all been exposed to with other families that are, I either know someone, and if you talk to just about anyone, they'll say, my cousin, my nephew, my so-and-so, my friend's son is struggling with autism. So this is just a very prevalent issue. But yes, very much the philanthropic aspect of it is 100% to really leave a mark and do something good in this world and advance autism research and hopefully autism cures. And yes, it's, the point about it being index-based, right? We also want a good product. And if you think about what the autism ETF is, it's a disease that impacts 1 in 31 people. This is a massive population, and companies that come up with the different technologies and hopefully cures and testings are going to benefit. And in that case, it could potentially be a good investment for people to hold on to if they're looking for biotech, healthcare, rare disease, things like this. The other thing I'll say about that is most institutions, like especially endowments and groups that we've talked to, really, really want to have some part of their portfolio and allocation dedicated to products for a cause. And so there's certainly room for this in a portfolio allocation.
Yeah, so you touched on this slightly there, but there are no FDA approved medications for kind of the core symptoms of autism at this time. So the full ecosystem is touching pharma, it's touching diagnostics, it's touching, behavioral therapy, education, even assistive technology. So can you walk us through kind of the 3 core segments you're going to see inside of this fund?
Sure. I think I can give you I can talk about some segments and also give you some examples, but it's going to be, drug development, genetic testing, diagnostic tech, behavioral therapies, educational tools, assisted technologies. Just to give you some examples, though, it's like BrightSpring. They do behavioral health and developmental disability. It's LifeStance. They do mental health and behavioral care utilized by individuals with autism. Stride and Pearson, educational platforms. Revity is diagnostics and genetic testing. But there are all sorts of pre-IPO companies also working on cures for autism. There's a company called, Yamo, for example, that is one of the, biotech companies out there that has a really good medical solution for children with autism that apparently doesn't have side effects and helps improve quality of life. And there are going to be other companies like theirs, whether it's in the educational space and coming up with different ways to provide education, and behavioral services to children or to their parents. And I think that this is a nascent space. And if we just think about where the world is going with AI and, the future of biotech and pharma and how, even that aspect of it could improve over time. I just think that these are opportunities to get in like at the very beginning while these companies are just on the edge of breaking through with different solutions.
Yeah, so we touched on the philanthropic piece like super briefly, but it's genuinely important and it's a massive differentiator for this product. So Defiance is donating 100% of net advisory profits during the first 2 years and then no less than 50% thereafter to autism causes. So can you kind of talk about how that came together and, what organizations you see, these donations will support?
Yeah, I mean, so again, I think a lot of ETFs are created because there's a popular trend, as we talked about before, but this was really created because autism affects real families every single day. And the experiences that these families have with raising profoundly autistic children are essentially, harrowing. And I think that with the personal connection and the philanthropic donation here, there's just a level of authenticity, let's say, with this fund. It's something we really believe in and will hold true to our word and donate to different autism organizations. In terms of who we'll donate to, that is something that could potentially change over time, right? We want to make sure that we're working with different charities and organizations that are doing the things that we believe in. And so, when the time is appropriate, we'll kind of disclose who and what those organizations might be. But, just think of the most popular ones. We're certainly having conversations with them. Autism Speaks and such.
Yeah. Well, I genuinely hope that this fund has as much success as your other funds.
Thank you.
And we can help propel that space forward and get families and people the help and the innovation that they need. And so with that, we are going to drastically shift gears away from this fund to June 12th, maybe, is a massive day. SpaceX is slated to go public. 1.75 trillion valuation, which would be the largest IPO in history. And you guys are launching SPCU, which is a 2x long SpaceX ETF the same day. Can you walk us through what this is going to offer to investors?
Yeah, so the ETFs, it's to be determined in terms of the launch date, in terms of when it'll come out into the market, but certainly after SpaceX IPOs. So I would say that next week you'll see all of these ETFs trading is the most likely story. But we just think that the buzz of SpaceX is just transforming the market, but the company itself has transformed space by basically reducing launch costs and increasing frequency. You have Starlink and the Starlink network, which has recurring revenues. You have these contracts with Google that bring in billions of dollars. But I think this is just something where space is becoming a commercial industry. It's going to be part of a huge ecosystem. You're going to have everything from rockets, actual space, AI infrastructure, connectivity, communications, launch services, defense technology. You're going to have, government investment in this particular space. And not to mention that it's an Elon Musk company and it's, the next gen of Tesla, right? And there was kind of so much excitement about that. And that took on many, many faces and shapes in terms of the different pillars that bring revenues. But we're so excited to bring products into the market. There will be several that hold SpaceX. The SPCU will be the 2x levered SpaceX ETF, but We have a handful of others as well, like XOVL actually has exposure to SpaceX already. Some of the thematic funds have built into the index methodology that they, could hold space and satellite types of names. So lots of excitement to come in the next week or two. And I think you'll see a good amount of access and tools available for investors through SpaceX.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Like, there's really going to be no shortage of ways to get SpaceX exposure on day one. And the single stock 2X from Defiance and Pro Shares, a wave of buying, from index funds, space themes ETFs, right? So why does Defiance want to be in this category? And how do you think you're, maybe positioned a little bit differently than the rest?
I think we have a great moat, right? We're going to have a 2X long product, a 2X short product. We have a basket of space names like SPCL. We have thematic 1 beta funds that hold it. We have other levered ETFs that are related to space. We've already put a lot of ETFs out there. You can see our some of our 2X single names, like Rocket Labs is one of them. So I think that we've already been in space. We're one of the ETF companies that's known for our space exposure. And if you look at some of the other, even related stories, like you can look at a JEDI, which has, drones and satellite, the future of military warfare. Space is a huge theme, I think, in general. And so I just think that it's been very much in line with our brand. It's something that we've been working on all along. And so, hopefully the market recognizes us for that.
Yeah. And so the space economy has gone from like niche theme to like mainstream, like rather quickly. I was just talking to Thema ETFs. They launched the NASA ETF, gathered 100 million in like a week.
Yes.
UFO crossed $1 billion. What do you think is driving that demand from investors right now?
Yeah, UFOX also crossed $1 billion too. That one's ours. But yeah, I just think that investors are very much engaged in, where the puck is going for technology. This was a word that a lot of people were using years ago, and it's kind of died down because AI is the new buzzword. But the fourth industrial revolution is here. We're living in it, right? And with the growth of AI, quantum computing, supercomputing, if you think about, what is kind of needed for that and what grows from that, it's connectivity, it's communications, it's moving data, it's, finding different ways to grow and support AI. And I think that space is just a natural kind of cousin to all of these different themes. And so it's no surprise that investors are excited about it. But again, I think it's hard to argue that a big part of it isn't that, it's an Elon Musk company, right? I think there's just some buzz around Elon Musk and space. I think the two sometimes feel like they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So we talked, earlier about, the prolific growth of Defiance. And so you've had launches in autism and drones and single stock levered plays. Like, what's the broader vision as we head into the back half of 2026? Do you think we're going to see more from Defiance?
Oh, for sure. We have been launching products almost weekly at this stage, and you'll see a mix of things. You'll see new thematic products that represent, untouched subsectors of some of the major themes we've discussed today so far. You will see more single name leverage funds coming out from Defiance. We have all sorts of innovative and creative filings that we have out there. And I think what you'll see from us is more disruption, more innovation. And I think you'll see us hopefully winning on bringing some new disruptive and exciting themes to the market that investors want to trade.
So Sylvia, as we think about maybe the last 24 months, I mean, Defiance is ballooned. Personally for you, how's your life changed, I guess? And what's the company look like today compared to 24 months ago?
Yeah, great question. So as you can imagine, we're all a whole lot busier, right? And there's a lot of excitement that has come with that. And, I'll say just like on a personal note, like we're super grateful, right? I mean, we started in 2018. It took a really long time to get to the point where we were able to put this many products into the market and see, some of the success that we have seen in the products that we put out there. It's just, a matter of time and, introducing yourself to the markets and, people kind of trusting in what you're building and doing. And so we've been so lucky to have the best supportive investors and, people cheering us on the sidelines. That's been just awesome. And we're grateful for it. But the company's grown, right? We're no longer, just a startup, right? We have a larger team. We have a great and brilliant team that supports all of the efforts and things that we do. We're all very much, ambitious and passionate about what we do. And that, as long as the good ideas keep on coming and we have the speed to get them to market and investors want to trade them, I think you'll just see continued growth from us.
Was that, just curious, when you're sitting around the table with a small team in 2018, was the idea always to get to a point where you guys are launching a product every week, or is that almost like a pivot or a business decision that happened another time after you started having success in some of these spaces, and it's like, hey, let's just keep launching product?
Well, there's obviously always a chicken and an egg. You need balance sheet and growth to justify launching additional products. But yeah, I mean, we had always planned to grow and to put products into the market and to get our good ideas out there as fast and as often as we can, right? So we're certainly very thoughtful in what we're putting into the market, and everything that you see us launching and filing for is something that we very much believe in. And, not every ETF that's filed for ends up getting launched. So we're certainly selective, but we have very high conviction in the things that we put out into the market.
Well, Sylvia, I always enjoy my time with you. Before I let you go, where can people learn all about Defiance, get information on ASD and all of your ETFs?
That's defianceetfs.com. And thank you, Brad, for having me.
All right, we'll talk soon. Thanks.
Thank you.